Athens is one of the most affordable, exciting cities I've ever visited. So much so I've been there twice in the last 12 months for less than £100 each time. Here are 10 things you need to know before you go, from hidden costs to hidden gems. Why Athens? Here's why I keep going back on a budget. I've been to Athens twice in a 6-month period, once just before Christmas when my eldest book, and once in March with my 84-year-old mum, so trust me, I've seen the city through two very different lenses. One trip was all about street food and ancient ruins, the other involved a lot of lifts, polite cafes and chairs that didn't wobble. And both trips cost around £90 a person. With book it was 89, with mum it was 94, but it's pennies, isn't it? And that includes flights and hotel. You couldn't get 2 nights in a Premier Inn in Doncaster for that, let alone sunshine, history and gyros the size of your head. Was it hot? No. Was it shorts in the day, hoodie at night, smug that you're not in Doncaster kind of weather? Absolute. And that's in December. March was even slightly warmer, but either way it was comfortable. So if you're wondering whether Athens is worth it on a budget, here are 10 things you need to know before you go. Some will save you money, some will save you sanity, and at least one involves a stray cat with main character energy. Getting to Athens can actually be cheaper than getting to work, especially if, like me, you live in Anglesey and commute to Shropshire once a week. Believe it or not, it works out about the same. Between early October and late March, Google Flights will regularly throw up return fares from London, I'm afraid, to Athens for around £45 return. That's not a typo, that's less than 2 pizzas and a side in this economy. And now yes, it's usually Wizz, the spiritual home of early mornings, unassigned seats and fluorescent lighting. But when I went with mum, we flew out with EasyJet and back with Wizz because the timings worked better and it was actually the cheapest deal that weekend. That particular combo worked out as £43 each return. And it's nice to keep things spicy and spread your loyalty a bit. If you're not based near London, which I'm not, but it always works out the best deal for me, and hoping to fly from Manchester, well, good luck. You might find a deal, but you'll need flexible dates, a deep understanding of sacrifice, and probably a full moon with Jupiter in retrograde. And yes, I know not everyone lives near the capital. I don't either. I live in Anglesey. Flying out of London is like a budget version of planes, trains and automobiles, but for those fares it's worth it. If I was going on my own, I would probably stump up the extra for Manchester. But even that is still a 2-hour drive for me, so it's only 2 hours more to get to Luton. I end up going from Luton. But as soon as your group gets to 2 or 3, you are talking the difference is hundreds. But £45 return. If it's a bit of a commute for you, you might stay in a hotel the night before. You're still talking, you can find a hotel down there for about 50-60 quid. That's going to add 25 quid each to a really cheap holiday already. Don't forget, I've said before, I've done this for 90 quid. The first time I went to Athens, I stayed with my eldest book at the Hotel Pergamos. It's on the Omonia side of central Athens, and we'll talk more about that later. There were no burnt out cars, only minimal eye contact with shady characters. The place does have a name. But for the hotel itself, clean, it had a balcony and cost between £25 and £35 a night. And I'm seeing those prices on Expedia all the way in that window from October till March. The second time around I went with mum. She's 85 and smokes on balconies like a Greek philosopher with the Wetherspoons loyalty card. So we picked the Hotel Socrates, slightly further out, slightly nicer, and again in that £25 to £35 a night zone. Now if you're not as tight as me, maybe stretching to £50 a night gets you options in the posh bits like Plaka, Monastiriki. You'll get more stars, maybe even a pool, but if your only water-based goal is a working tap, then budget still wins. Basically with a £45 flight in the last section, £90 for 2 people, that's a magical £45 each, you're talking a holiday for 90 quid each. For the solo traveller that will come in at about £120 all in using those same hotels, unless you're brave enough to try a hostel. If you do that, let me know because I won't be doing it. Let me know how it goes because I'll be cheering you on from my private balcony drinking €2 wine. Omonia. The name alone sounds like a warning label on hotel bookings. Side effects may include dodgy streets, suspicious glances and kebabs at 3 AM. So naturally, I stayed there. On my first Athens trip with book, the price tag was just too tempting. A clean twin room with a balcony for £25 a night. I wasn't going to let a few internet horror stories from the area put me off that kind of bargain. Now I won't lie to you, when we stepped off the metro I was starting to question my life choices. It wasn't exactly giving Pinterest vibes. And as we walked to the hotel, we passed what can only be described as a very active nighttime economy, led by women in extremely high heels and extremely low expectations. But nothing happened. No burnt out cars, no muggings, no drive-by shootings. It's almost as if it's like a parallel dimension where they're doing their thing and we're doing our thing. And the two dimensions just don't intersect. They're doing whatever they're up to, and I don't really want to know what it is, and we're heading for a gyros. The hotel was clean, the location was fairly central. It was about a 4-minute walk from Omonia Square where the metro station is, and it's the sort of place where the takeaways are going to be the cheapest you can find. You were getting a good meal there for less than a Tesco meal deal back home. Would I choose it again if I was feeling flush and trying to impress somebody? Definitely not. However, there are some nicer hotels in that area. If I'm pinching pennies like I normally am, prioritising location and food over Instagram vibes, absolutely. The one tip I would give to anyone walking through that sort of area with their nearest and dearest is what we did. It's the same anywhere around the world. What I tend to do is I make book walk ahead first so that I can see any danger they're walking into, and I walk behind so that if someone's going to do a sneak attack from behind, they're going to get me, not book. Book should get away. And that's the way I play it. I don't know if I'm doing the right thing, but it just seems to make sense. So yeah, it is rough around the edges, but it doesn't seem dangerous. It's a bit gritty, but that whole Greekness still shines through. And I think what it is, it's got its reputation because it's bad by the rest of Athens standards. And the rest of Athens is great, so it's just not as good as the rest of it. Now, I'm pretty sure I've been to worse places in Birmingham, London and Manchester. Maybe I'm just hardened to it, I don't know, but yep, I think you're perfectly safe. Right, let's talk about the obvious. The Acropolis. Yes, that one. You've seen it in films and probably 1,000 Ryanair seatback ads, but here's the shocker. It's actually worth the hype. It's not just a crumbly old ruin on a hill, it's the crumbly old ruin on a hill, with this crumbly old ruin having a look at it. The Parthenon is one of the most instantly recognisable structures in the world. When you finally see it up close, it's kind of mind-blowing. And even better, you don't have to squint at it from afar like it's the Mona Lisa. In Athens, the Acropolis is everywhere. You're sipping coffee, boom, Acropolis. Buying a cheap fridge magnet, Acropolis in the background. Getting lost in the old town, yep, it's still there, judging you like a very classy Google Maps pin. Now, if you want to see the bits that Elgin didn't think worth nicking, and let's face it, he wasn't that thorough, head to the Acropolis Museum. It's sleek, air-conditioned, and costs about the same as a coffee at Heathrow. You can literally stare at 2,500-year-old statues and artefacts while wondering how badly the Ryanair seat is going to treat your spine on the way home. Of course, it isn't the only game in town. The ancient Agora, the Roman Forum, Hadrian's Library, all ridiculously affordable, incredibly preserved and scattered across central Athens, like the best open-air museum Europe forgot to gatekeep. Is the Acropolis the only reason to visit Athens? But if it were the only thing, it'd still be worth the trip. And the kicker, you can buy a multi-site ticket for less than a UK cinema night out, and trust me, the views are better and there's far less popcorn on the floor. And if you're going in that window between October and April, the Acropolis slopes are half price. You're getting it for €10. And to be honest, if you're not into it, it's worth €10 to spend an hour. If you're into it, you could spend half a day and it'll be the best €10 you ever spent. When it comes to mobility, when I went there with Mum, we were told there was a lift. It was out of order, and that was said to me in a way that it is often out of order. So do take that into account. But okay, Mum didn't get to go up the Acropolis, but she saw the Parthenon from many different places. It's accessible even when it's not accessible. Now here's something no one ever gets excited about but should. Public transport, yep, I said it. Athens nails it, and I don't just say that lightly. For €20 you can grab the 72-hour Athens travel pass. That gets you unlimited access to the metro, buses, trams and crucially the airport train, which on its own usually costs €9 each way. So basically the rest of your transport is free. But honestly, you won't even need it. Because here's the twist, Athens is properly walkable. On our last trip, my 85-year-old mum walked from Syntagma to Plaka, through Monastiriki, across Syria, and still had enough energy to trek up to the funicular. Okay, it was a lower funicular station. She's not Wonder Woman, but still. You don't need taxis, you don't need Ubers, you just need comfy shoes and a vague idea of where the Acropolis. It looms over you like a divine sat-nav anyway. And in clean air-conditioned metro trains, with proper signage in English and Greek, because let's face it, we're there, Athens becomes a city that's just as kind to your feet as it is to your wallet. We did use a couple of Ubers between both my trips. They were reasonably priced. You're talking €5-6 for a hop that you really didn't fancy doing. It's not bad at all. So, yep, 10 out of 10 for transport. And the other thing I noticed, even at Omonia station, it is clean. Let's talk about food, because it's not just good in Athens, it's suspiciously affordable. I'm convinced there's an ancient Greek law that says gyros must be cheap and delicious. On one occasion, Buck and I picked up 2 gyros, 2 cans of pop, 2 bottles of water for €8. That's €8, that's about £6.50. That's not a meal deal, that's a mythical bargain. Now, if you've never had a gyros before, go to your local kebab house, buy one, then imagine it better, fresher, wrapped in warm flatbread, stacked with meat, chips, sauce, salad, and possibly a sprinkle of magic. Then half the price. That's a Greek gyros. Even in the most touristy bit, Monastiriki Square, the spiritual home of how much prices, we had a sit-down gyros for €5. That's in the square. Obviously I had a beer as well, so the meal came in a lot more than €5, but €5 for a lunch in a tourist trap. I mean, if it had been anything else, it would have been a lot more. It's got to be law. Breakfast is dead easy. There's little kiosks and bakeries all over the city where you'll get a Freddo coffee and a fresh pastry and change for €4. I'm pretty sure caffeine and flaky pastry are considered essential nutrients here. And yet they're not fat. Now at the other end of the scale, because sometimes you feel fancy, even me, even with my shallow pockets. Yeah, one night in Plaka in a rooftop restaurant under the glowing Acropolis, we had a full rooftop Greek feast. Starters, mains, drinks, more drinks, cocktails, possibly more cocktails after that. I know I had a hangover the next day and I don't normally drink enough for that. That was with me and Buck, and that came in under €90, only just. And spectacular views of history and me giving a tipsy TED talk on Souvlaki versus Gyros. Then I went back to Mum and drank like a responsible adult, because she'd have nagged me silly if I hadn't, to exactly the same restaurant. We got a similar meal for €40 for 2, and I still managed to get a drink. Same food, less dad dancing. Moral of the story, Athens is a budget food paradise. Whether you're grabbing a street snack or clinking glasses on the rooftop, your stomach and your wallet will leave happy. Yeah, one thing that will always remain in my memory, we went up Mount Lycabettus on the funicular. Buck and I had a couple of sandwiches, plate of chips, I had a couple of alpha beers, and it came in under €20. It was lunch, it was you can't get much more tourist hotspot, the only restaurant at the top of a mountain that's full of people. If that had been Snowdon, you'd have been talking £10 for a soggy sausage roll. It's got both ends. On the trip with Mum, we found a really nice bistro type place. I had squid carbonara. I was expecting it to be pasta with a little bit of squid. No, they'd replaced the pasta with squid. That only came in at about €13. So you really can eat at both ends of the scale, and that's exactly what I do on my trips. I eat cheap for most of the time, but I have at least one nice meal, and Athens is definitely the place for that. Now don't get me wrong, the ancient history is incredible, but let's not pretend Athens is just one big museum exit with a good gift shop. It's a modern capital city, it's alive, it's loud, it's got rooftop bars, high fashion, underground music, street art and traffic that could absolutely be declared a UNESCO emergency. Now I'm not exactly the party animal I once was, and the type of holiday I cram into 3 days doesn't really allow for that, because I'm usually getting up early the next day to do something else and we will have had a full day. So on a 3-day break I'm more looking for a nice restaurant and a view. However, if that is your scene, because let's face it, that's what most people like out in a city break, and you're looking for nightlife, Athens brings it, and it brings it hard. From stylish rooftop cocktail bars in Monastiriki to basement bars in Syria, blasting techno till breakfast, the city's got every flavour of nightlife covered, like any capital city. If you're more into daytime adventures and a little bit more cultured, like I try to be, you've got the modern side. You've got national art galleries. We really enjoyed the modern art gallery, and some pretty swanky shopping malls and cafes that take their coffee very seriously. Like, don't mess with the Freddo, seriously. Public squares are buzzing, especially at weekends, families out for strolls, students sat with takeaways, elderly Athenians playing chess like it's an Olympic sport. The flea markets are amazing. Even outside the tourist hotspots, you've got neighbourhoods full of local live bakeries, barber shops, supermarkets, where you can buy 3 types of feta, and still not the most expensive one. Athens is lived in, and that's what makes it special. So while the Parthenon might be 2,500 years old, Athens itself is not stuck in the past, but it pays respect to the past. It's a fully functioning, modern Western European capital, one with the audacity to casually sit next to history and say, yeah, we've still got it. I would say, think the most vibrant parts of London, if they hadn't mucked around with the good old bits. It's got it. And despite it being a big modern city, it's all still a bit Greek. Yes, it's a big city, it has metros, malls, mopeds trying to kill you from 3 angles at once, but turn a corner and suddenly you're in postcard Greece. You'll find yourself wandering down sun-drenched alleyways in Plaka where whitewashed buildings are draped in bougainvillea, and every street seems to end in either a taverna or a church. You'll walk past a man selling olives out of a suitcase, a grandmother sweeping the street like it owes her money, and about 3 cats that appear to be running the place. Honestly, Athens treats its cats better than most countries treat their citizens. You'll see bowls of food and water left out at every block, shady little cat-napping spots in ancient ruins, and the occasional feline who clearly owns the taverna you're sitting in. And speaking of tavernas, lunch is an event. We're not talking meal deals or rush bites, but you can still do that. We're talking tables full of food, dishes you didn't order arriving, a quick bite that ends with you googling, can feta cause drowsiness? And there's this lovely thing that happens in the quieter neighbourhoods. Siri, Anafetioka, Margarignani, I can't say half these things, where a thin line between tourist and local blurs. You've sat beside an old couple sipping ouzo, a dog's asleep under the next table, and somehow you feel like you've been coming here for years. The weather helps. This is the Greekness that makes you slow down, that makes you realise that not everything has to be scheduled or efficient. Sometimes the best bit of the trip is getting completely lost, finding a rooftop restaurant with a view of the Acropolis, because you'll get that everywhere. Any building that is within a direct line of sight of the Acropolis will have a rooftop restaurant. Ordering one drink and then still being there when the lights come on and the night air gets cooler. That's the Greece I know from the islands, and it is still there in Athens. If you somehow get bored of Athens, which is impressive if you manage it, but hey, sometimes it happens, there are some very good reasons to leave the city for the day. On one trip we did a half-day tour to Cape Sunion to see the temple at Poseidon. I was with Buck, and Buck is so into the Percy Jackson novels. We wanted to see some of the main historic sites, and Temple of Poseidon's one of them. It's about an hour and a bit down the coast. Drive is lovely. Temple sits on a cliff overlooking the sea. If you're lucky, you'll get a sunset that will make you question why your life choices didn't include being a Greek god. Then there's Meteora. Yes, it's a long one. It's a 15-hour round trip on a coach. About 5 hours there, 5 hours going around everything, and 5 hours back. But well worth it. You're in a landscape that looks like somebody let Studio Ghibli design it. Buildings perched on top of sheer rock pillars, spiritual silence, and you still get back in time to eat gyros and pass out. We did this with Mum, because Mum loves a coach trip. 15 hours is a proper coach trip in her book. It was the ideal pace if you're with an elderly relative. They get plenty of sit-down time on the bus, they get a bit of action, and then they can snooze all the way back. It's a day delivered without you doing any planning. And now here's where I have to admit something. I used to turn my nose up at organised tours, but then again I used to buy them off TUI and Resort. I thought they were overpriced, filled with people who wear money belts and clap when the plane lands. But I discovered Viator. It's not this isn't sponsored, it's not a plug, it's just good. We've done so many with them, probably 25 or more now, and they've all been solid. You get to see the highlights, skip the planning and sometimes the queues, and if you pick the right one, it's genuinely better value than booking it all yourself. I am an affiliate, but I'm not going to bother linking it up because I'm not talking about any one tour in specific. Like if you check out my Marrakesh video, you'll see we did a 3-day Sahara trip, including food and accommodation, for £80. And we checked out of our hotel to do it, so that's another saving, boom. So if you've only got a few days in Athens and you fancy an epic day that you don't have to do any of the work, do a tour, even a half-day tour. Cape Sunion, Meteora, Delphi, the islands, it's all doable. If I go back, well, who am I kidding? If I go back, when I go back, I'm tempted to do one of the boat trawls to an island and back from Athens. There's loads of them. Just pick the vibe you're after. Mythology, monasteries, views, wine. It's worth doing. And honestly, go on Viator now and just look at the options. If that doesn't sell Athens as a destination to you, nothing will. Here's the thing no one tells you about Athens. It might secretly be the best winter destination in Europe. I've been twice, once in mid-December, just before Christmas, and once in March, and both times I was in shorts and a t-shirt. Was it hot? No. Was it comfortable enough to pretend it was? Absolutely. Book, who thinks 18 degrees is a bit too much, was happy. Mum, who'll melt if you leave her too close to a radiator, also did fine. And me, I love a bit of sunshine, didn't feel shortchanged at all. If you think those rare UK Easter weekends where it's just warm enough to stare wistfully at the sea and wonder if it's safe to actually go in, that's Athens in winter, but with better food, cheaper wine and actual ruins. Now if you're a proper sun worshipper, summer is your season. You'll leave with a tan in the space of a weekend, a camera roll full of blue skies and a mild sunburn in the shape of your sunglasses. But here's the trade-off. You'll also pay more for the flights and hotels. The Acropolis steps become a cardio workout in a pizza oven. So if you're asking me, out of season Athens is the sweet spot. Cheaper, calmer, and you still feel like you've been somewhere. More importantly, you've got away from the UK winter. And let's face it, the Parthenon does not take holidays. It'll be there in mid-March, probably looking majestic while you're eating €2 gyros in the sunshine. I know where my money is. Look, I'm all about new adventures. It's a big wide world out there and I want to see some of it. I've got lists, maps, folders, Excel tabs, but Athens has done something sneaky. It's got under my skin. I've already been twice in the past year, once with Book, once with Mum, but I still haven't taken Sue in. I think she deserves Athens, not sure if Athens deserves her. Now she turns 18 this year. She's full of energy, loves the concept of rooftop bars, and let's be honest, she's absolutely going to rinse me for gyros, cocktails, vintage shops and late night dancing. And it's cheap enough to let her get away with it. Probably need to start cardio training now because she's not going to let me sit this one out, and there's no way I'm going to let her go out on her own. Even though, just between us, Athens feels safer than most places I've been to, so I probably could let her go. But I'm not gonna. So yeah, despite my plans to explore the world, I've got that sneaky suspicion I'll be heading back to Athens for a third time this year. And honestly, I'm okay with that. In fact, I'm better than okay with that. I am really looking forward to it again. So if you're planning your next trip and wondering if Athens is worth it, yes, it's affordable, it's warm, even in the winter. Food's amazing. It's iconic. You know, the Parthenon has been seen on so many films. You just got to go for that just to say I was there. I've shown you how cheap it is to get there, how little you need to spend to have a good time if you are on a budget, and how it's packed with history, beauty and proper good vibes and gyros. So here's my final travel tip. Subscribe, because I don't just talk about budget travel, I have a go at it, I book it, I test it, I research it. We'll see you next Thursday, possibly Athens. It'll probably be Athens. Thanks for watching.